What's up, guys? It's your boy JK here, coming to you live with the latest UFC news with that real fan opinion. So buckle up, get those seatbelts ready, get your cup of coffees, your brews, wherever you're joining us in the world, and let's discuss and talk about the latest fight announcements that dropped literally last night here in the UK or in the US, wherever you are, very late. And we've got a lot to get through, so make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button on the channel as well. Welcome on in. We got a lot to go through, man. Look, I'm going to bring up these talking points. We're going to be going through the UFC London main event change and how we feel about that, really, from a UK fan's perspective. We'll talk about the 5 bouts that were announced for UFC 314 in Miami, Florida. We'll talk about the main and co-main event announcement for UFC 315 as well. And then to round things off, we'll talk about Makhachev versus Topuria. Is it going to be set in June, perhaps? Because there's been a lot of talks going around, and I cannot wait to dissect it all with you guys. Welcome on in, welcome on in. Like I said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like on the video as well. I'm coming to you from, it's 7 o'clock here in the UK. I thought, do you know what? There's so many announcements, it would be rude not to go live. I mean, I've literally crammed this show into my day. So just to kind of talk about these fights with you guys, because look, we love to talk about fight announcements here. We usually talk about them in the Aftermath show. We like to predict the fights in the Aftermath show. And then we like to talk about them during the watch long as well. And, you know, if I can get into a routine of doing these new shows, I would absolutely love to. But it's a little bit of a stretch here. We run a tight ship over here at Against the Fence. So, you know, if you fancy helping us out, you can... There's a donation button somewhere. We could get in some super chats as well, so get your thoughts and opinions in the chat. They're free, we'll read them out, but if you want to help and continue to support the channel, then feel free to hit the super chat. All right, let's digress. Let's get into the main topic then of, well, not the main topic, sorry, the first topic of the evening, which will be the bout change at UFC London in March. Leon Edwards will now take on Sean Brady. Wasn't this fight originally rumoured for this card? Like, I felt that was the case. I don't know about you guys. I think Brady was the initial rumour. Then it came out about Jack Della Maddalena, and then the UFC actually announced it. And we were like, right, great. JDM versus Leon Edwards is such a striking affair. It's a banging fight for UK fans. It could go either way. It's probably 50-50, I would say. In terms of prediction-wise, the Sean Brady fight kind of worries me a little bit. And I think it will worry UK fans, if I'm honest. But, you know, kind of what happened to the agreement? How did it go from Brady to Jack Della Maddalena is kind of what I'm asking myself. I think they didn't want to put Leon up against another wrestler in his home country, if I'm honest. You know, I think that's kind of where my feeling is at with the UFC and why they decided to go for Jack Della Maddalena. Jack Della Maddalena was, I think, one point rumoured to have a title eliminator against Shavkat Rakhmonov, but he was unable to pull through on that because of injury. Fast forward later on down the line into 2025 now, and he was scheduled to fight Leon in London. Yeah, I mean, look, I think Brady is going to be a heavy favourite coming into this fight. He's looked solid in recent performances since that loss against Bilal Muhammad, who's the current champion. He's just kind of looked insane, if I'm honest. And for Leon Edwards, yes, he's been able to get past wrestlers in the past, but Sean Brady's a young, strong cat, and I think it's going to be very difficult to stuff his takedowns. I really do. So I'm not confident. I'm not going to lie. I'm not confident. Ash is in the house. He says, stylistically, this is a worse matchup for Leon. It really is. And do you know what? I think the UFC have been dealt with quite a poor hand here. And we'll get into some more of those reasons a little bit later on in the show, because certain things have happened which has clearly caused them to jumble everything around. I think that, well, we'll get into it later. We'll get into it in a sec. I'm just going to jump in ahead of the gun already. So yeah, there's kind of my initial thoughts on this fight. Not confident from a Leon Edwards perspective. Sean Brady has a top opportunity now to maybe get himself into a rematch with Belal Muhammad, perhaps, if Belal was to get past Jack Della Maddalena and Shavkat Rakhmonov. So, all of a sudden, welterweight could be heating up a little bit in 2025 should Sean Brady get the win against Leon Edwards. My guess would be a 5-round decision and Brady takes it. But it depends on if Brady can withstand the pressure of the UK crowd. Belal Muhammad, you got to take your hat off to him. He did quite well. He was in enemy territory. Okay, there was a lot of people there to support him, which was good. He brought over a lot of people, which helped, I think. But yeah, to deal with the UK fans, I felt like he did a good job with it. But moving on then to talking about our UFC 314 main card, which is set. Most of the card is pretty much set, I believe. What do you guys think of this main event between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez? And it will be for the vacant featherweight title. There's more. We're going to talk about Ilia Topuria in a little while, but this fight I think was rumored a little while ago as well. It was kind of a bit of chopping and changing in the media. Was Volkanovski going to get a rematch with Topuria? Was he going to fight Diego Lopez? This, that, and the other. But it's finally landed, and it's landed with a lot of other fights as well. Man, and they're quite excited as well. I don't know about what you guys think about them. If I drop that here and let's bring up this one. This is kind of what it's shaping up to be at the moment. We've got Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett was announced as a 5-round co-main event. The fact that's 5 rounds quite surprised me. Because, I mean, Chandler likes to go to war. Let's be honest. And was this the Oliveira one I thought? No, it wasn't, was it? Paddy Pimblett in a 5-round setting. We've seen it before if you were a fan of Cage Warriors. I felt he went 5 rounds with Juliana Rosa, close fight, and I felt that he lost that fight. Chandler's not been known as a fighter with solid fight IQ. He's going to go out there and put on an entertaining show, but he's been doing that in recent showings, and he's fallen short against the top of the division. Now he's against a rising Paddy Pimblett, who's taking such a jump in this fight and could very well catapult himself into a title contention with a win against Chandler. I think he has a solid chance because his frame for 155 is looking pretty big. And I think some Paddy Pimblett fans are quite confident about his chances against Islam Makhachev. And look, I'm not going to get super confident on it, but I'd say he's got the size to maybe deal with him in some ways. But if I'm honest, it would take a Hail Mary to stop Islam Makhachev if you're Paddy Pimblett. That's just my personal opinion. Also, we've got Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Now, I was expecting a bit of a bigger jump in the rankings for Prates, if I'm honest. I said I thought it was going to be Wonderboy Thompson. That was back in December in our watch-along. And I said that I felt MVP might get Jeff Neal if, MVP, because I didn't think MVP was going to stick around at middleweight with a win against Shara Magomedov. And I felt like a move back down to welterweight, Jeff Neal would be his ideal opponent. Yes, people want to see the Wonderboy fight with MVP, but MVP is not really interested in that fight. So that's why I kind of said MVP versus Jeff Neal makes sense. But Prates is getting a Jeff Neal who is, not that far up in the rankings, if I'm honest. I'm just going to check the rankings now. we've got Jeff Neal's in at number 10. Prate's in at number 13. So for someone who's on a bit of a tear and has been finishing guys left, right, and centre, I'm a little bit shocked. I'm not going to lie. But in Carlos Prate's fashion, he could get a quick finish against Jeff Neal and then get rebooked again against a Colby Covington, I don't know, title eliminator perhaps, or maybe, all right, maybe towards the back end of 2025. Let's pump the brakes there. Maybe a Joaquin Buckley or a Sean Brady. Should Sean Brady get the win against Leon Edwards? So, yeah, I think he can make some jumps depending on his finish, if he's able to finish Jeff Neal, I believe. Smash a like on the video, folks. Let's get through it. We got some chats. Yes, boys. Yes, George Murray. Welcome on in, brother. Who says, went from $1 million fight to $100,000 fight. Ballsy from Iron Mike. But, sorry, lad. You're going to sleep, kid. And do you know what? Yeah, I fancy Paddy Pimblett's chances in this. I think the UFC are really taking a gamble on Paddy the Baddie. That's what I think. Because if you look at the lightweight division and you look at who in the top 10 has Paddy got the best chances against, I would probably say Michael Chandler and Dan Hooker. Max Holloway, Max versus Paddy is maybe a difficult one. But Max probably should be able to stuff his takedowns, I think. At the same time, you got Paddy, who's going to be a lot stronger than Max. That's an interesting one. But other than that, that's all I can see him do well against. And maybe Michael Chandler, maybe I'm underlooking Paddy. Maybe I am. But I think the Chandler fight, from a fighter IQ perspective, makes sense for Paddy. It's the ideal stepping stone, I think. Can't believe Chandler versus Paddy, says Ash. Neither can I, mate. Neither can I. But I think it was coming. I wasn't really too surprised. I think Paddy's little social media post where he hinted that he'd see you at the top, and I think when he said that, that was kind of obvious the fight was going to make. So he kind of spoiled it in a way. Also on the card, Patricio Pitbull versus Yair Rodriguez. Gotta mention that one. That's going to be probably quite high up. Yair was rumored to fight Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen, I think, was in the process of, or that fight, I think, was agreed, I believe, but it didn't go out into the media. But Arnold Allen has recently been posting surgery images on social media. So I think because of that, the UFC decided to sign Patricio Pitbull. I was campaigning for them to sign him in a few videos ago. I felt that he was going to walk into the lightweight division and get a matchup there because he's not in his prime anymore, I don't think. And the UFC are taking a bit of a risk, signing someone, former two-time Bellator division champion, on the back end of their career, and they're giving him Yair Rodriguez straight away. It's a tough fight, and it's a tough character to deal with for your UFC debut. But it's not really, at the same time, a risk for the UFC, because if Yair goes out there and wins, that just makes them look even better. That gives them an opportunity to say to fight fans, look, that was Bellator, one of Bellator's top guys. Our contender in Yair Rodriguez, who's fought for the belt once and failed, beat him. So he wouldn't have got to like a Alexander Volkanovski or so on. But look, I'm going to, in a way, root for Patricio Pitbull in this. I got a feeling Yair might be the favourite. He might be in the judges' eyes. But if you're a hardcore MMA fan, tell me you wouldn't want to like to see Volk versus Pitbull, right? I think it could happen. If Diego Lopez goes out there, smokes Volk, that's another loss on Volk's record. Volk could retire, and fans would probably expect him to retire. However, I think Volk's a dog, man. He's going to ride it until those wheels really do fall off. And therefore, a fight with Patricia Pitbull would be that kind of ideal matchup, I think. That's my opinion. This card is mad, says Ash. Making it up for 312, Ash. Ooh, who's making it up for 312? I don't know what he's on about. Yeah, I kind of want Pitbull, says Ash, as well. Yeah. I think it'd be good. It'd be good for the UFC for more contenders to come through. Yair's had his chance, and yeah, he could very well get himself back into contention. If Lopez was to beat Volk, then you got Lopez versus Yair, Mexico City card. That's ideal. That's selling for the UFC. It's big. But because Pitbull's come from the UFC, I think it's good for the sport if these Bellator or PFL guys at the top of their roster are able to compete with the UFC guys. I think it's good for competition and it gets people excited. I mean, prime example, Dakota Dicheva. She's absolutely killing it at PFL. And people are talking about wanting to see her come over to the UFC. I think it will happen eventually, but hey ho. Another one I'm super excited about. We had some news, which is a side note. I wasn't planning on talking about this. We had some news about Aaron Pico as well yesterday. He's basically calling for PFL to release him, and he's said he wants to join the UFC. However, there is a clause in his contract where if he receives an offer elsewhere, the PFL have the right to match that offer, which apparently also means that his contract I think could continue, but he'd have to wait another year or wait for a year to be released. Something along those lines. It was discussed in an interview with John Morgan, but I struggle to get my head around it. I hope Don Davis listens to Pico. I hope Pico begs for that release, and I hope Aaron Pico comes over to the UFC. He is the most excited prospect. He would be the most exciting prospect to come over. And look, he also said in that interview that he'd be game to come over and go into the featherweight division and fight Bryce Mitchell. And I think that's a banging fight for your first fight in the UFC. Because when he lets those hands fly on Mitchell, if you see what Josh Emmett did to Mitchell, mate, I guarantee you that Pico will do exactly the same. Clip it up, because that's what I'm saying. Right, who else have we got in the chats tonight? George, who says 312 was pony for UFC Feel Bad and put out this banger, so they are making up for 312. Oh, I see. Yeah, do you know what? Yeah, good point. Good point. That did leave us a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, not gonna lie. At least there's 2 brain cells in the chat. Sorry, yeah, mate. I tell you what, I've had a bit of a mad day. I've just come back from a boxing session, so that's probably why I'm a little bit on the boxing come down at the moment. George says Dakota isn't in the 2025 PFL World Tournament. She's coming over to the big league. Do you know what, right? I tweeted this out. Imagine, right, if the UFC sign Dakota, Pitbull, Pico, Patchy Mix, Naimkov, all in the same year. That would be absolutely mad. Like, the PFL were meant to rival the UFC. There was a lot of talk about it a couple of years ago. We did a news show on it. Jake Paul joined the roster and they were going to take over. Francis Ngannou joined, this, that, and the other. Fast track to 2025 and the UFC are basically signing their main stars. How crazy is that? And it's purely because of the whole merger, right? Loads of these people at the moment, their big names are calling for fights. They're begging for fights. They need the money. But the PFL have gone hiding. They're basically, they've done an Ineos. What Ineos are doing to Man United right now. Ineos are broke. PFL are broke. And they can't afford these fighters. And I think that's what's happening right here. The money has dried up. The big tournament winners used to win $1 million. They ain't winning that anymore. Mate, they're going to be winning $200 at best. So I think the UFC are going to absolutely ransack PFL. They're going to sign a lot of guys over. That's what I hope anyway. But look, it's going to, in the UFC, on the other hand, for the UFC, there's going to be some give, right? I think they will probably cut a lot of people. Because remember that period where they cut Overeem and they cut some like big names because they were big people on contracts that were coming towards the end of their career. I think the UFC will have to resort to that should they sign all of those names that I just mentioned. That's just my take on it. But yeah, another one. Danny gave us a Sean Woodson got announced. Props to Sean Woodson for getting a big or a step up in competition against Dan Ige. That fight is going to be a barn burner. Could be a guaranteed finisher in that. Ash saying, yeah, I think the UFC still could make some great signings. The chat's coming up behind the fight card. Oh, shit, my bad. Good spot. Cheers, mate. It's because I got my notes. Notes over the top. There we go, mate. There we go. George says, too much money signing Francis and Jake. Well, look, Jake will give him some pay, but to be honest, Jake's really prolonged this MMA move, hasn't he? Right? I think that he should have fought in MMA as soon, or the same year that it was announced that he was joining PFL. But instead, he's carried on doing the boxing thing. And I think people are getting quite sick of seeing his fights. And he's just, you really want to watch him fight MMA now? Really? I can't see it. I think people were hoping to see Tony Ferguson against Jake Paul, but Tony Ferguson's gone GFL, mate. He knows what it's at. Ash saying, with Ilia vacating, does Islam versus Ilia happen? If so, thoughts on that fight, lads? Yes, get your thoughts on that. We're going to move on to that in just a second. Breezy, I'd smash. Absolutely, Breezy. Good morning, sir. Good. Welcome on in, brother. Welcome on in. Let's clear those chats. Heading on back then to talk about some of these other matchups. We'll move on to now talk about Here we go. There's a nice little preview. Bringing up Marcel in the corner there. Moving on to talk about UFC 315. Main event and co-main event were set. Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot finally happening. We knew that was going to be a case. Shock horror. These fights are going to happen in Montreal, Canada. You got yourself a good one. Winner of that, I think, hopefully will fight Weili Zhang. Unless Natalia Silva gets a win against Alexa Grasso, because that fight was also announced yesterday, I believe. Yes, Salute Wales, welcome on in. Salute JK, what a card. He says, mate, get some predictions in the chats. I want to know some of your thoughts. Who do you think is going to win on these matchups at UFC 314 and 315? But yeah, Shevchenko Fiorot finally announced. And then also, that made the card. Also, Burns versus Michael Morales got moved to the card as well. Just to pad it out, mate. Just to pad it out. Bilal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena got booked. Maddalena moving from the London card to Montreal to fight for the title. Mate, fair play if you're Jack Della Maddalena, right? Going from fighting Leon Edwards to a straight title fight. Wow. Now, it was revealed that Shavkat said that he was offered the title fight. However, he could not accept because he was injured. He also said that he'll be facing the winner later in the year. He couldn't make that May date. And I think, if I'm honest, this has led the UFC to make a desperate move. Right? Moving Della Maddalena to the headliner to fight for a title is a desperate move. And it's going to affect the UK fans for the UFC London card. Because we had such a banging fight on the feet that was hard to call. But now we've got two fights where the wrestler is going to be a heavy favourite. If I'm honest, look, we saw Jack Della Madalena's wrestling against Basil, whatever his name was. He came in short notice and out-wrestled JDM. Gilbert Burns out-wrestled JDM until JDM caught him in the third round, of course. But can JDM catch Belal Muhammad at any point in the fight? Okay, yeah, it's possible, but I'm not feeling confident in it. I'm really not. And I've got more to add to this in a sec as well when we talk about Topuria having to vacate the belt. It's another desperate move for the UFC. And I think, in a way, maybe they were hoping for big names like a Conor McGregor, maybe a Nate Diaz to come back to headline a pay-per-view, or Masvidal. These kind of guys that you can kind of put in that you don't necessarily need a title fight as your headliner to sell the card. But unfortunately, this is where we're at. Great Fight says, Ashman and Furo all day, fam. Yeah, I'm all over that. Furo, champ prediction at the end of the year. Breezy says, the Shevchenko disrespect will not be tolerated. I think Breezy actually picked Shevchenko to be champ at the end of the year as well. So he'll be gunning for her. Well, so salute, Ash, mate. I should be around Saturday night. Oh, lovely. Yes, we got a watch along happening at a different time as well. Different time. It'll be 2 a.m. here in the UK. Wales says, Muhammad gonna lay on him for 5 rounds as per usual. Yeah, maybe the UFC are doing kind of dirty again with this headliner. But they're bringing pay-per-views over to Canada, and they're just like, on paper, you're like, oh, man, you picking a bad bunch, really. Best of the bad bunch. Yeah, I think putting Burns and Morales on the card was a good move. George said, had more fun at a funeral than watching Belal. Oh, wow. Do you know what? To be fair, Belal did come up with his funniest comment yet today, where he said, I stole Leon's belt and I stole his opponent. And I thought that was quite funny. For Belal, that's pretty funny. You got to admit, right? You got to admit. But yeah, I digress. Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of, with this whole announcement, I was like, some of the fights I was like, oh yes, and in some of them I was like, I don't know if this was the right move, you know. And I think the Muhammad JDM fight and the Edwards Brady fight was one of those fights. I was quite pumped for Volk versus Lopez, pumped for Chandler versus Pimlet, but we all know it was happening. But exceptionally pumped for Pitbull in the UFC against Yair Rodriguez. JDM, please take that chin off, that chin strap off. You know what? Yeah, man. What if JDM goes out there and gets the upset, gets like wrestled for like 3 rounds and then pulls out a knockout in the 4th? Like, that would be something. But I think it's going to take a lot to KO Belal. It's been done before. Jeff Neal was able to do it, but JDM, man, if he was to get that strap in 2025, woo! Mate, the UFC would be like, brother, please, brother. Thank you, brother. You know, I think they would be thanking the MMA gods for this, because they clearly don't want Belal as champ. They will then continue to do JDM versus Shavkat, and that will put bums in seats, regardless. Shavkat will still be favourite, but, you know, it's the fight that people would rather see, right? I don't know. What do you think? Do you think you'd rather see Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Jack Della Maddalena, or would you rather see Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov? It's a big question, actually. Like, well, thinking about it now, maybe Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov might be the better fight. I don't know. I think you could go back and forth with people's opinions on that. I really do. Wales says, did you see Till's comment? Actually, I did that. That made me laugh. But then Belal's reply after that was like, mate, you're a fat sausage. Something like that. I don't know. It was like, get on the Ozempic or whatever it was, because you're a fat sausage. That made me laugh. I have not got a picture saved somewhere. My bad. Yeah, no, that was funny. He's getting funny. Bilal's getting funnier. But yeah, Till's comments, man, they kill me every time. Hang on, who said GDM for their champ by the end of the year? Breezy might have said that actually. Mate, if Breezy gets that, that is some cool. That is some cool. And it would be by accident as well. But JDM, I think, would have to beat Bilal and then get injured and just not fight Shavkat. And then he's safe. But we'll see. Let's hope not. All right, gang. Moving on then. Awesome stuff. Let's talk about then. I do not have an image for this. As I said, this show was pretty much rushed throughout the day. Man's been busy. There you go. There you got the Grasso versus thingy fight. Austin Vanderford fight. The fact he got signed was a bit of a shocker. Can't lie. Actually, do you know what? Let's find. I don't think it's gonna let me. Oh, I've got to stretch the window to do that. Yeah, let's not let him. All right, let's take us back then. Let's take us back then to the main page where we'll talk about then this last topic, which I think is, man, a banging one. Makhachev versus Topuria to take place in June. Now, why is the UFC forcing Topuria to vacate the belt? I'm going to give you several reasons. Get your thoughts in the chats, whether you agree with me. Smash a like on the video. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Here's the first reason. I think they're struggling to make headlining fights for pay-per-view events, and they need belts on the line. And they can't afford to hold up divisions. So that's your first reason. Second reason, Topuria was originally open to fighting Volk, rematching Volk. He said that after he beat Max Holloway, didn't he? Right? And he also, I think, said it after he beat Volk as well. Now, what has changed in that period? Could we be getting 2 huge fights this summer, perhaps? If the UFC are going down this route? Ariel thinks that Makhachev versus Topuria will happen during International Fight Week. Or should the UFC save it for Abu Dhabi? Because, like we said before, they always put on a show in Abu Dhabi. Makhachev is always the headliner. That event is usually in October. So they might hold that out. Jones versus Aspinall will be in the summer. International Fight Week, that's the big one. October will be Makhachev versus Topuria. But what's changed in that period for Topuria to kind of change his tone, to want to move up and fight Islam Makhachev? I think he's dug his heels in with the UFC and he's messed them around a little bit. And that might be part of the reason why they've decided to strip him instead of doing a champ versus champion fight. Because they're like, well, look, if we're going to get this fight made, it's going to be, summer, October. During that time, we're going to struggle to fill these cars. We're going to need titles on the line. So for that reason, we're going to have to take it off you. And you've messed us about here. Because if he would have defended the belt against Volk at UFC 314, maybe Topuria's injured that we don't know about. That could be another possibility. But, you got to ask yourself, why are we not seeing Topuria versus Volk 2 at UFC 314 instead? Because timing-wise, with a win there, if he stays healthy, of course, that lines you up perfectly for October. Right? So maybe there is more to it. Maybe Topuria changed his tone because there was a lot of talk about it. There was a lot of things in the media, a lot of hype surrounding that fight. Maybe. Let's get to some chats. Then George Murray says, personally, think Ilia should have kept the belt and go for champ. But would beating Volk, Max Islam be worth then double champ status? And that's another question I've got for you guys. That's a good one, George. If Ilia Topuria beats Makhachev, is Volk, Holloway, and Makhachev the best winning run we've ever seen in the UFC. Name a better run. Can you do it? Honestly. To beat two of the division's all-time best at featherweight, then move up in weight and take out the lightweight champion, that beats McGregor. That beats McGregor because he defended the belt. He actually defended against Holloway. So maybe that's what Topuria's seeing here, and Topuria seems quite confident about this matchup against Makhachev. I am not feeling too confident about that. I think maybe he should have defended a little bit more, or take some time to pack on some size, which maybe he has got time if that fight is in October. Put on some muscle mass and get ready to sprawl and brawl against Makhachev. Because let's face it, if it stays on the feet, maybe we would fancy Topuria's chances. If it's on the ground, though, against Makhachev, who is our big lightweight, really should be moving up to welterweight. I know we talked about it in the last Aftermath show, didn't we, about this matchup? And I just felt that Topuria probably is too small for Makhachev. And Makhachev is going to get a lot of discredit from MMA fans for fighting another featherweight. But look, the UFC be the UFC. I think Makhachev is game for whatever fight they put in front of him. And Makhachev has fought some of the top names already in the division. Poirier being one of them. You know, Oliveira. And what else? You really want to see Makhachev fight Gaethje? Not really. Chandler? Not really. You know? Why not get one of the best pound for pound fighters in the list and beat another one, you know? I think it's good for Makhachev in a way. I don't know. People will disagree with me, though. Got to get back to work. Have a good evening, lads. Thank you, Wales, for chiming in. Good stuff, as always. We'll see you this weekend, hopefully. George says, UFC want bums on seats, but allow a lot of champs to only fight once a year, i.e. Jones. I think they should be contracted to fight at least 2 times a year to move divisions along. Do you know what? That's a very good point. George, smash a like on a video for George Merry there. Yeah, you're right. Few champs have only defended once in a calendar year, and it does stretch the UFC a bit. Islam versus Ilia would be big, though, says Ash. Imagine it in Spain. Look. Woo! Yeah, that's a good point. We still don't know if the UFC are going to come to Spain. I don't think they were confident. The last time they were talked about it, I don't think they were confident in that move, that it was going to happen. But if you're the UFC and you want to catapult into the stratosphere and be Conor McGregor levels, you're going to need to balance out the scales, right? For Topuria. You put the fight in Spain, then it almost kind of levels out a little bit, right? All those Spanish fans chanting for him, and I think the atmosphere would probably be unreal. And it could be enough to knock Makhachev off his game. Just saying. So maybe Ash is onto something. Fingers crossed. But personally, I think the UFC will want to do it in Abu Dhabi. Awesome stuff, guys. Thank you very much for joining those who have tuned in to this new show. I'm going to have to wrap this up now, I'm afraid, because I got some homework to do, some prep for this weekend's watch along. Make sure you join us at the times below. You can see in the ticker there. We'll come back around. Much different fight night time. We've got UFC Seattle, Cejudo versus Song Yadong. Make sure you tune in with us for that. Don't watch alone, watch along. Oh no, the times aren't there. I thought the times were. Maybe I should get it up. I think it's 2 was it 2 a.m. in the UK? 2 a.m. in the UK, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. So make sure you got the notifications bell rang on our channel. and tune in along with us with your fight predictions, your thoughts, future matchups, and everything else to go along with it. I've been JK, your host. Have a good evening. Have a good rest of your day. Take care, and we'll speak soon. Ciao for now.